Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah wa salatu salamu ala rasulullah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. They say that a person came to a sheikh asking him if he goes to make ghusl in a river. And in the past they used to do this. So they go to a river and they take off their clothes as they go inside the river. So like every time they go deeper, they take off their clothes and then they throw them on the shore. So he asked the sheikh, if I go and make ghusl in the river, do I need to look somewhere like to the qibla or to my right hand side, or what should I do? He said, just watch your clothes so no one will steal them. Tonight, inshallah, we're going to talk about Tahara. And this is the first chapter on Tahara is actually to talk about what you can use to make your ghusl, to make your wudu, and as well as what are the things that are considered najis in Sharia, which is impure in English, but this is from a Sharia perspective. A najis is something that we cannot pray with. It's something that we must remove and must purify. So we will talk about these. We have a lot of material for tonight, so I would do my best to cover as much as possible, inshallah. And I need your help to stop me if I am overspeeding, or ask your questions if you think that I'm not really explaining well. Agree, inshallah? Right. Alhamdulillah. So let's talk about tahara. What is the water that we can use for wudu? That's a very first question that almost all the fuqaha who wrote books in fiqh will start with. And the reason they start with tahara is in twofold. One is that tahara means that you purify your inside, and now with iman, and now you purify your outside with wudu and ghusl and whatnot. So it's actually you need to purify yourself, or otherwise this religion cannot be practiced in the right way. So the religion of Islam is so noble, is so precious, that it requires purity inside out, right? So that's why most of the ulama start with tahara. And the second reason is that tahara is a condition for your for your prayer to be accepted, or any other act of worship that requires it. So for example, if someone prays without making wudu, is his salah or her salah accepted? No. Even if they forget, like let's say a person nullified their wudu, and they forgot that, they thought that they had a wudu, and they come and they join the prayer, and they pray with the jama'ah, and then they leave, and then they remember, oh, but I nullified my wudu. What should they do? They must, by all ulama, they must redo their salah. They must make wudu and redo their salah. Their salah without wudu does not count. إن الله لا يقبل صلاة إن الله لا يقبل من عبد صلاة حتى يتوضأ. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not accept any prayer from a person until that person makes the wudu. Yes?
I don't know whether it's okay to interrupt right now, but regarding your prayer when you're praying and you accidentally pass wind, in your second rak'ah or something over here in steady line, or you get out of your prayer line and perform your wudu again and start your prayer again, or you continue with the prayer.
Sure.
Okay, because I heard one scholar say that mashallah, wasn't his fault, because he didn't have the habit in habit, in other words, so he continues to pray.
If someone passes the wind, he can continue prayer?
Okay.
Huh?
I'm asking, yes.
Yeah. Okay. So that's the question. Jazakallah khair. So as we teach fiqh, fiqh is an entire knowledge or branch of knowledge that will take us perhaps years. And we are going, inshallah, step by step. And this thing about like the rulings of prayer, we will come to it, inshallah. But just because the sister has asked, I will answer, inshallah, the question. So the question is, if while the person is praying, the person passes wind, does that nullify their prayer, or can they just continue? Now, in general, that nullifies their wudu, and their salah is no more valid. They just cannot continue. That's in general. But there's one exception. That one exception is if the person has a disease that makes him pass wind almost every single minute. And that happens. I mean, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us all. There's this, and there are people who actually drop urine they just cannot control themselves. With this type of situation, those people are excused to continue their prayer, but they must do a wudu for every single prayer they do. In other words, before they start Salat al-Isha, for example, they must make a wudu, but after they make their wudu, they don't have to worry about anything that they do during that one prayer. For Salat al-Fajr, they have to do wudu again, and during Salat al-Fajr, it's fine even if they have this issue. And so on for Salat al-Dhuhr and Asr and whatnot. So they will have to make wudu for every Salah, while during their Salah, it's fine because it's not in their control, and it's totally, unfeasible for them to just go and make wudu for every time they pass wind or they drop urine. Does that answer your question, inshallah?
Yes. There was one sister who was having a problem with that again. So
Okay, I'm not hearing very well, but I think what you are saying, if they pass gas accidentally, then yes, they must renew their wudu, and they must restart their salah from the beginning.
one person I know was bringing their, they were passing gas, the second over and over again. They, I made it through.
Yeah.
They do it again.
So-
It kept happening, So,
Yeah. So, sister, inshallah, I would love to answer your questions, but let us first start with the tahara, and then inshallah I will answer those, because the questions you are asking are actually ahead of my topic. And inshallah, when I come to the rulings of prayer, I will answer all these questions. But for you tonight, inshallah, once we're done with what we need to do tonight, inshallah, I'll try to answer your questions. Barakallah fikum. Okay, so back to the water and what we can use for tahara, for wudu, and for ghusl. So in Sharia, wudu and ghusl must be using water. And water, which we call it al-ma' al-tahir or al-ma' al-tahur, the water that we can use for that is actually any water that remains in its natural form. Any water that remains in its natural form. What is natural form? Rain is natural form. Lake is a natural form. River is natural form. Ocean is a natural form, although it is salty, but it is natural form. So any water that remains in its natural form did not change its color, did not change its taste, and it did not change its smell. Remember those three: taste, smell, and color. Taste, smell, and color. If the water remains in its natural form and does not change any of these three, then that water is what we call it ma, tahir, and tahur. Tahir and tahur, those different nouns have different ruling. And unfortunately, it is not something agreed upon in fiqh. So you would hear the differences between tahir and tahur in the Hanbali madhab, but in other madhab you may hear different things. So I don't want to get involved into those things that will distract you from what is really necessary to understand. So all the ulama, all the scholars, all the schools of thoughts have unanimously agreed that a water that remains in its natural form, then it is a water that you can use for your wudu and for your ghusl. So that's the most important rule that you get for tahara, for what is tahara. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said, وَأَنزَلْنَا مِنَ السَّمَاءِ مَاءً طَهُورًا, and that we have brought from the clouds مَاءً طَهُورًا, which is a purified water. Now, this is like the one example is the rain. Snow is actually tahur. Like if you get snow and then it melts and it becomes water, then that's tahur. You can always make wudu with that. The same thing with the ocean water. Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said, "Huwa tahuru ma'u al-hillu maytatu." He pointed his finger to the sea, and he said, "This is the water that is always pure."
But it is
But
missing
it's
one.
It is so salty.
It is salty, and you can make wudu with that salty water. And by the way, why? Because it remains in its natural form. But you cannot take your own like spring water and add to it salt and make wudu. You see the point? That's very important. The water of ocean or sea it's in its natural form, so you can always make wudu with it. But you cannot bring water from a water well or from like spring water and add to it salt and then make wudu with it. You can't do that.
So you change it naturally, natural state.
If it remains naturally as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created it, then yes, you can. But if it goes through a human process of changing its color or its taste or its smell, then it's no more the water that you can use for tahara. Yes?
What about the water chemical that's added to those water that we add
Yeah. I will come to that. So the question is about some chemicals that we add to the water. I will come to that, inshallah. Yes?
What about a chemical that naturally exists in the water but may pollute it, even though
So here's the distinction, Habibi. If it is in the water naturally, then it's fine.
So like Dearborn, Michigan water?
Dearborn, Michigan water has the what is it called? Lead in it?
Lead, yeah.
Lead, yeah. So that is a human added chemicals. It's not. It came from leakage, right? Yeah. It's not natural. It's not natural. Okay, but I will come to that because I will explain like different types of waters, inshallah. Okay. So another type of water is ma' zamzam. Ma' zamzam. Who did get the chance to drink ma' zamzam about 40 years ago? Anyone? I'll know your age if you tell me yes. Did you? Yeah. Okay. Did it taste at that time like how it is now?
No.
Very different, by the way. My dad and mom used to take me to Mecca. I was born in Saudi Arabia and I spent there 27 years of my time. So every time we go to Mecca, my dad is like, "This is the best water, ma' zamzam." So I go like in a hurry and rush to drink from it. You know, there's a sunnah called al-ittila'. Al-ittila' means that you drink water excessively, ma' of zamzam, until you feel the water is in your bones. It's a sunnah, by the way. It's a sunnah because ma' zamzam is very special. But unfortunately, the taste of ma' zamzam, at least at that time, it was very, very, very different from the water that we drink. So the taste is different, but because it's in its natural form, ma' zamzam is tahur, and we can always use it for wudu. Alaikum salam. Sister, how about we pass some cards?
Been here for a long time, but I wanted to ask still, about, you said that, it has to be water to make wudu with. Suppose you're in a place, whether it's a dungeon or whether it's a closed-in place, there is no water.
So we'll come to tayammum, inshallah. We'll come to that, sister.
No, there is no sand, no dirt, no desert, no water. Okay?
Yeah. No.
There's a paper I gave you.
Oh,
Yeah, sister, it will be very helpful, Barakallah Fiki, if you write your question on a piece of paper or questions in a piece of paper, inshallah, I will
Did
answer
you
them.
understand what I was just saying?
Yeah, I do. I do. But I mean, I really want to finish some material here, inshallah, first.
We haven't talked about those things that you
We
did.
gave them the cards already. They have the cards.
Okay,
so they can-
Jazakallah khair. Okay, so that's Ma' Zamzam. And then there's also sometimes the water that, like residual of water that remains after rain. And then you start to see some, maybe some, a little bit of a change because of like plants and fungus and other things. So how about this one? It's a naturally developed things, then yes, you can still make wudu with it. Okay, now that's one thing. Alhamdulillah, we're done with that. So now there's another type of water, or another issue of water, which is the water that is being reused. In the past, water was not accessible to everyone. So what they used to do, they used to put water in a bucket, and then they use it for wudu, right? And what gets out of what it drops after they wash their parts will go back to the bucket, and they will reuse that bucket. Because I mean of the lack of water, it was very common in the past. So what is the ruling about this? Now the ulama have difference of opinion about this, and the vast majority of the ulama, they say that this type of water is tahir, but it's not, you're not supposed to use it for a wudu again. Meaning if it has been used for wudu, and then now you accumulate that water in the same bucket, then you better not use it for wudu for another person. But it is still tahir. Tahir meaning that it's not impure. It is pure, but you are not supposed to use it. In the Shafi'i madhab, they say that your wudu is not even acceptable. And I still remember my dad. My dad is Shafi'i and my mom is Hanafi, by the way. My mom was stronger than my dad at my early childhood, but when I became adult, my dad pushed me more for Shafi'i. But I lived in Saudi Arabia, so I learned the Hanbali madhab, which actually made me better understand like the issues between the Hanafi and Shafi'i better. So the Shafi'i madhab in particular, they say if the water touches any person, then you should not use it. Like my dad said that in his early childhood, if his mom, meaning my grandmother, passed him a bucket of water to make wudu, and they didn't have those fancy faucets. So all what they have is a bucket of water. So if she passes that, he would watch her. Did she touch with her finger the water or not? Because his sheikh used to tell him, if it was even a touch, you should not do it. But that's not really the common agreement between scholars. Most of the scholars have said that if it was used, like if it was just touch, it's fine. But if it was used and it drops after they wash their parts, then that's the water that you don't need to use for wudu again. Some scholars have said that if that happens, if a person used that water for wudu, and then what remains was accumulated in a bucket and someone else wants to do it, then it is fine. And that's, as I said, it's a difference of opinion. And the argument they say is that as long as the water remains without a change of its smell, of its color, or of its taste, then it should be fine. But wallahu ta'ala alam, to stay away from any khilaf, of any disagreement, you better not to do it. And alhamdulillah, we have plenty of water, so we don't need to worry about that. And I just mentioned that because I remember at one time I was talking with dad and family about fiqh issues, and my dad mentioned that explicitly, and he was like, Abdurrahman, you should be careful when you talk to people about this to explain it to them. Okay, now third type of water is a water that actually is mixed with something else. Like for example, we just mentioned like if you add soap to it, soap, like excess amount of soap that it changes its either color or taste or smell, right? Then that water actually is still tahir, but you should not use it for wudu because it is no more in its natural form, right? So things like, for example, I know that there are certain type of sanitizers, if you would, that they use for water, and it actually makes the water blue, right? It's some type of chemicals. It makes the water blue in color. If that changes into blue, then you can't use the water. But I can tell you, for example, if you are in a swimming pool, right, and that swimming pool has, you know, they use some chemicals to clean it, right, to purify it. You may smell sometimes that chemical, especially immediately after they apply it. But once it's settled, the water is no more, the smell is no more there. That type of water is still in its natural form, and you can use it for wudu. Some people may ask, what if that water is, like what if people urinate in that water? It happens, right? I mean, those big swimming pools, you never know. I mean, there are many people who will use them and they will urinate in them. Would that make that water permissible for us to use it for wudu or not? The answer is, because this is an excessive amount of water, it actually makes it resistant of what? Of najasa. Unless the najasa was so excessive that it changes its color, or its taste, or its smell, right? So there's one hadith about bi'r buda'. That bi'r, it's a water well that is in, I think it's in the north side of Medina. That bi'r, or that water well was very well known in Medina, that I think it was big, large enough that some people would throw the dirts in it. Like they throw sometimes like najasat in it, blood or something that touched urine and all that. And they used to bring that water to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, like from that water well. The water well is so huge, and the water inside is so excessive. So they told Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they said, Ya Rasulullah, this water well, people unfortunately throw dirt in it. So is it permissible to use it for wudu? He said it is tahur, and al-ma'u tahurun la yanjasuhu shay. That this water in its natural form and in this excessive amount is tahur, and nothing will make it impure. As long as the water remains in its natural form, even if some little thing little najasat have touched it, it's fine, inshallah. There's one other hadith that has a little bit of issue in its authenticity, in its chain. The hadith says, "Ma balagha al-qullatayn lam yahmil al-khabath." If the water is in an amount of qullatayn, then even if some najasa is mixed to it, as long as it doesn't change the three things, color, taste, and smell, then it will remain pure, and it will remain a water that you can use for tahara. And qullatayn, by the way, qullatayn is 160 liters. 160 liters. And I actually searched what 160 liters means in something that we can relate to. And actually, it is exactly the amount of water that you need to fill up a tub. You know, if you fill up your tub, that's almost 160 liters. You know, 160 liters is almost 45 gallons. Almost 45 gallons. And actually, to fill up your tub, like standard tub, not the fancy jacuzzi tubs, I'm more talking about regular tubs, the amount of water that is required to fill up that is almost 45 gallons. So if your water is that much, then even if there is some najasa that is mixed to it, as long as the water remains with unchanged with its smell, its taste, and its color, then the water is still valid for you to make tahara with. You can use it for wudu, and you can use it for ghusl.
You can get in and all.
You can get in. Yeah. Yes. 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 Okay. So far so good, inshallah. Okay. Alhamdulillah. And I'm trying my best to, as much as possible, to talk about difference of opinions, but at the same time I'm trying to minimize things that may confuse us. It's actually a trade-off that I have to be in the middle. Okay, so with that said, I want to give some connection between this fiqh and our normal life. There's one hadith that was narrated in Sahih al-Bukhari and Sahih Muslim. And the hadith says, إِذَا اسْتَيْقَظَ أَحَدُكُم مِّن نَوْمِهِ فَلَا يَغْمِسْ يَدَهُ فِي الْإِنَاءِ حَتَّى يَغْسِلْهَا ثَلَاثًا. Let's say that you have a bucket of water, or if you have like any type of container or jar that has water, and you would like to make wudu with that water, right? So the hadith says, if someone wakes up in the morning, like after sleeping, then that person, and this person wants to use this water in the bucket to make wudu, for example, then he is not supposed to dip his hand in the water until he or she cleans their hands 3 times. So what you can do, you have the bucket, so you can tilt the bucket a little bit so that the water goes on the side, and then you wash your hand 3 times, and then after that you can dip your hand in the bucket. And that's actually, subhanAllah, that's a sunnah.
Any amount of water,
Yeah, even small amount. And that's a sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And in another narration, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said, فَإِنَّكَ لَا تَدْرِي أَيْنَ بَاتَتْ يَدُكَ, because you don't know during your sleep where your hand was. It could have touched something impure, right? And it happens. I mean, everyone can imagine during sleep you can do things that you are not aware of. So Rasulullah said that when you wake up in the morning, when you wake up after sleep, you should not put your hand inside or dip your hand inside a bucket of water. You rather clean it 3 times first, and then you can dip it in the water that you or others will be using. And that gives us the sunnah, which is try your best to be as clean as possible before you use water that others will be using afterwards, or that you will use yourself afterwards. And that actually tells us a big thing about being always clean. Like, for example, I can tell you, if someone sleeps, maybe the worst thing that they can do as they are sleeping is to touch their private area, right? Like this is the najasa that someone can expect as they are still asleep. And for that, Rasulullah is asking us, or maybe touching nose or mouth or whatever. So something that is impure or something that is dirty. Rasulullah said, you wash your hand 3 times, touch or dip your water in any your hand in any water that will be used further afterwards with you or with anyone else. This tells us that we should always have a clean body. And regardless, even if it is not a matter of salah, even if you're not doing it for salah. And that actually is the essence of Taharat al-Muslim. Taharat al-Muslim is to always be clean inside out. So cleaning your body is not only for salah. Cleaning your body is all the time. And it really hurts me when I see Muslims who come to the prayer and you can smell a very bad, they come with very bad smell because of dirt or because of their job requires them to, do things that will make that smell come from their body or from, whatever. The point here is that Islam requires us to always purify ourselves and to always be clean, whether we are making it for salah or outside of salah. And that actually gives us the essence of why the ulama have talked a lot about tahara and about the type of water that we can use for tahara, because they want us to be always clean as the Muslim should be at all times. Clear? Any question here? Because I'm jumping to a different topic. Yes, go ahead. Hi, Sam. Loudly, please. Go ahead.
Especially in this country, most of the people are asking, here is a rule that they recycle the water from commode and use water canalization, they recycle it, come back to the drinkable water. We are telling the condition of water, the smell is not changed, the color and the taste, but they are telling, some of them are telling, but the source is already in the Najasa from where they made.
Yeah.
They are confused and they're good for
Barakallah fiqh. That's an important question. Jazakallah khair. So he is asking about recycled water. What's the ruling about it? Recycled water, if it is in what we see nowadays that we get from, at least in the state of Maryland. Let's not talk about Michigan. Michigan is a different story. But at least here in this state, or perhaps in the neighborhood, that water is actually is almost equivalent to how the water naturally exists, right? So because of this, even though that it has gone through a recycling process, it does not take away the ruling of it being tahur, that you can that it is pure and that you can use it for wudu, because it looks like exactly the water that we use for drinking, the water that we use that we get from the river, and so on. Right?
Because it returned to its original form. Right?
I'm sorry, because it
returned to its original form of water.
It returned to its original form. Yes, Jazakallah khair. You used the right word. Barakallah fiqh. Okay. Tayyib. Good. Okay, so let's now move to a little bit about some of the liquids that we that we encounter in our daily time, and whether it is tahir or najis, right? So there is a word called as-su'r. As-su'r in Arabic means whatever liquid, whatever drink remains after someone drinks from it, right? So for example, this bottle of water, like the saliva, when I drink from it, it touches my saliva, right? And whatever remains, so whatever remains here is called su'r, especially on the place where I drank. So the question is su'r tahir or is it najis? And as you can imagine, from a human being, it's always tahir. Some people say, even if it is from a kafir, yes, even if it is from a kafir. And that is ijma'. That's a unanimous agreement between ulama. All the madhahib, the four madhahib have said that whatever the saliva that comes from a person is from a human being is tahir. It doesn't make it najis. Now we're not talking about the water that we use for wudu. We're talking now about whether it is tahir or it is najis. So there's the saliva, if it goes, if it touches the water or if it touches any other liquid, it doesn't make it najis, right? If it comes from a human being. Now, Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and this is a nice hadith, and I want everyone to practice this at home. Aisha radiallahu anha reported that she would drink from a cup, and then she would give the remaining drink to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would choose the same spot where she drank from, and he would use that spot to drink from the cup. And Aisha would be so happy to see this, because we're not talking about French kiss or any of that sort, but we're talking about how Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to treat his wife in a way that he would show her that he loves the space, the place on the cup that she has touched her lips. To that extent, I know people nowadays like, Aisha radiallahu anha has said that we shouldn't be shy of telling the truth in the deen, even if it is something that culturally speaking we don't like to talk about. Like the Sahabiyat and the women used to come and ask Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam about very private things, and he would answer them in front of the public. Because in religion, in giving education in religion, it has to be publicly accessible to people. Yes, we try to use the right words and the very respectful words for it, but we have to also explain it. So that hadith, and although it is a hadith that the ulama have used to give an example of ruling, which is that the su'r or the saliva, if it touches something, it is still pure. It is not najis. It also reminds us with an etiquette of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam of how he would show love to his own wife. Okay. Now the second thing is, how about if you have a bucket of water, and let's say you have a goat. Anyone has goat here? You have? Okay, tell us about the Eid al-Adha, inshallah we can. Okay. So let's say you have a goat, or you have a sheep, or you have a camel, or you have a cow, and you have a bucket of water, and they come and drink from it. Is their saliva, is that water mixed with their saliva, is it tahir or is it najis? It is tahir. So any animal that you eat its meat, its saliva is tahir. So that's not. Now the third one is, how about animals that you cannot eat their own? Animals that you cannot eat their meat. For example, you have a water bucket, and you have it in front of your door, and you saw a fox. Anyone has fox near to their homes? We have one near to our home. And by the way, foxes here are different than the ones that we saw, like I saw in Syria or Saudi Arabia. Here they look, the color is different. But anyways, when I saw the fox here, I was so happy, wallahi. It's so tiny, small, cute, and all adorable, whatever you want to call it. But let's say that this fox goes into your water bucket and drinks from it. Is this going to be impurify your water, or is it going to make your water najis, or is your water still tahir? What is the ruling? Najis? Okay. Here is a point that has this difference of opinion between ulama. So let me tell you what each madhab has said. In the Maliki madhab, they said any animal that drinks from your water would still remain tahir, even if it was a dog. Nah?
Say any animal, that means dog.
Even dogs. By the way, in the Maliki madhab, the saliva of a dog is tahir. In the Maliki madhab, the saliva of a dog is tahir.
But what about pork?
I know. So here's one thing. There is hadith that says إذا ولغ الكلب في إناء أحدكم فاغسلوه سبعا إحداهن في التراب. In another narration أولهن بالتراب, that if a dog drinks from your water bucket, then you have to clean it 7 times, one of them with dirt, right? Imam Malik says this is true, but yet he says that the saliva of the dog is still pure. What does that mean? Imam Malik rahimahullah ta'ala says that this process of cleaning it 7 times is not because it is najis. It's because it's ibadah. Like for example, we make tawaf, right? What, right? We make tawaf 7 times. Someone could say, okay, I can do it 1 time, or maybe 2 times. Why 7 times? It's ibadah. That's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made it in the religion, right? So Imam Malik only Imam Malik says that we must clean the saliva of the dog 7 times, including 1 time with dirt, but that is not because it is najis. All the other ulama, Abu Hanifa, Shafi, and Ahmad bin Hanbal, they say that the saliva of the kalb, of the dog, is najis. Does that make it clear? You want to say, have a question?
Because of the germ, I think.
Because of the germs?
Yeah, because of the germ. There is a germ.
Yeah.
The doctor approves that there is a germ in the body.
Yeah.
If you don't use the dirt, it's not going to come out.
Yeah. So I think Jazakallah khair, he is talking about perhaps wallahu alam, part of the wisdom of using dirt to clean the saliva of a dog is because of some germs that will not go away with water. Yes, Akhi.
Question. So you said Imam Malik, he said it was an ibadah and not najis because there wasn't proof that it's najis.
Exactly.
So what proof did Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal and Imam Shafi'i and Imam
the same hadith.
What proof did they have that it is najis?
The same hadith. The hadith says if the dog drinks from your water bucket, then you have to clean it 7 times. Where 1 time or the first time it has to be with dirt. That one hadith, they both of the 2 opinions have based their opinions on that one hadith. But one of them have, like the Abu Hanifa and Ahmad bin Hanbal and the Shafi have said, when we must clean it, it means it's najis, right? I mean, that's clear, that's logic. But Imam Malik has said, but the Rasul ﷺ did not say explicitly that it was najis, right? So by the way, I'm taking tangent here, but it's very important. I remember I was in Ottawa about 15 years ago, and I went to visit a brother, and then subhanAllah I was surprised he had a dog at his home, and I said, Akhi, astaghfirullah, you come to the masjid, you have a dog at home? He said, yeah. I found out that Imam Malik says that the saliva of the dog is not najis. And he was not Maliki, by the way. He was doing fatwa shopping. He was doing Google search. And I told him, Akhi, you must understand fiqh in a better way. Imam Malik says that the saliva is tahir, it's not najis. But he also says that you must clean it 7 times. And he also says that it is not permissible to have it at your home unless it is used for either of 3 things. Either to guard you, or to use it as for your sheep, or if it is required for your farm. Otherwise, it's not permissible. Rasul ﷺ has said a hadith, it's in Sahih Muslim, that whoever has a dog in his house, then every single day they will miss qirat of their reward. Qirat is like a mountain. Like even if they make mountains of hasanat, they will lose them. because of this. And the Rasul ﷺ also said that the angels will not enter a house that has a dog in it. So Imam Malik is not talking about growing a puppet or what do you call it? The small dogs? Puppy? Yeah. So like having puppy at home is haram by all ulama. There's no difference of opinion about this. But the difference of opinion is about the saliva. Like if there was a dog walking in the street and that dog touches you, like comes a sniff or it comes close to you and it touches, what is the ruling of this? Is it tahir or najis? That's the difference of opinion. The vast majority of ulama, even some Maliki, have said it is najis and you have to clean it 7 times and one of them with dirt. Imam Malik, or the Maliki madhab for the most part, they said it is not najis, but you still need to wash it 7 times. You see the point? So there's no excuse not to clean it 7 times. Yes, I.
It's confusing, you know.
It's confusing.
If you took wudu and you're going to pray, on the way out, a dog comes and lick you, in the hand. Do you have to go back and make wudu?
Yes.
Or
No. Okay, here's one thing. Touching najasa does not nullify your wudu. Touching najasa requires you to clean the najasa. What nullifies your wudu is to pass wind, is to urinate. All those, we know about them. And we will talk about them, inshallah, in a different chapter. But touching najasa itself does not nullify your wudu. You see the point? Okay.
I have a question, or would you like me to wait?
Yes, go ahead.
So there's
Can you finish first?
Yes, sir.
I'm not satisfied. Can you finish it's not...
So touching najasa,
If the dog lick you, what you should do?
like hand or
Touch it with a point.
Yeah.
There's
you need to wash it 7 times, and you also need to touch to clean it with dirt. You need to do that. Yeah, you need to do that, regardless of. But that doesn't mean you have to redo your wudu, because redoing your wudu is only required if you do what we call it mubtilat al-wudu, and touching a najasa is not mubtil al-wudu. It does not nullify your wudu. Habib.
So when we're saying tahir versus najis, there's a distinction between tahir and salat al-shurb, right? A body of water can have waterborne parasites, or like you're saying, the dog can't drink from it. I don't think anyone would like to go and drink from that water. However, we're saying that according to some madhab, it's tahir in the sense that you can make wudu with it, right? So is there a distinction when we're talking about
if the water is not tahir, it is not permissible to drink.
However, if it is tahir, in every case would one want to drink from it?
Well, that's more of a medical question than a shari question. So if it is tahir, and if it doesn't hurt you, then you can always drink it. Why not? But if it is najis, so in other words, if the dog drinks from a water from a bucket, then the water there, you cannot use it for tahara, and you cannot drink from it because it's najis now.
But what about, you can find a body of water that hasn't changed its smell, color, or taste, but it might have a waterborne parasite, for example, that you can't see.
If you cannot see, well, I'm sorry, are you talking about...
let's say you know that there's a particular lake near your home, or a river, that is well known and documented to have parasites, something in it like that.
So let's say that you see a dog swimming in a lake. That does not make it najis, because that lake it doesn't change its smell, or it remains.
But there's a distinction between tahara and drinkable water, right? Or is it?
So drinkable water is not a fiqh issue. The fiqh issue is whether it is tahir or not. If it is not tahir, it's haram to drink it. If it is tahir, then we should ask the doctor, does it hurt me or it doesn't, right? Drinkable water is something more about like whether it hurts the human body or it doesn't.
Like a tap water in some states, it's not drinkable.
Yes, but but it might be still tahir. Like, can you drink ocean water? You can't drink it, but it's tahir. It's still tahir. Yeah. Okay. Now, how about so that actually tells us again in the Maliki madhab the saliva of any animal is tahir. In the Shafi'i madhab, the saliva of any animal is tahir except the dog and pork. And then in the Hanafi madhab, it is tahir except if it is dog or pork or anything that we cannot consume their meat. So what could be an example of an animal that we cannot consume their meat? Cat?
We don't consume cat.
Cat is an exception, by the way.
The reason I said it
but let's talk about lion, or let's talk about, for example, fox, or let's talk about coyote, or any of those. Or donkey. Is it permissible to eat donkey? No. Is it permissible to eat zebra? Yes. Zebra. No, zebra. Zebra is al-himar al-wahsh. It is permissible. That is permissible. So, and then in the Hanbali madhab, if it is an animal that we can consume its meat, or it is one of the animals that the Rasul ﷺ has called them tawafun and tawafat, meaning that they pass all the time in our place, like the cats, then they are tahir. So if you have a cat and it drinks from a water bucket, its saliva is tahir, right? So if we take all these together, like from all the ulama, then it's simple rule that anything that you can consume its meat is tahir. Like the saliva from any animal that you can eat, consume their meat is tahir. The saliva that comes from the pets that it is permissible for us to grow, which is cat in this case, then it is tahir. By the way, there are pets nowadays that are not permissible to grow, like what? Like snake. I heard some people use snake as a pet, right? It's not permissible, by the way. And the worst thing I heard, some people have rats, rodents, as pets. That's totally impermissible. It's impermissible. And some people have like cockroach. Did you hear about cockroach being used as pets? It's not permissible. It's not even permissible to buy those things. Rasul ﷺ did not allow the price of qadurat. But what I'm trying to get here is the ruling. The ruling, the high level rule. Any human being, their saliva is tahir. Any animal that we can consume its meat, its saliva is tahir. And cats, even though we cannot consume their meat, but because they live with us, their saliva is tahir. Anything else is something that we should avoid, and especially if it is a dog or a pork. Yes.
I don't want to ask a question that's off topic, but you mentioned cockroaches being impermissible
to grow as pets.
As pets, right? Yeah. Because we're not allowed to eat them either, right?
Yes,
okay.
Of course.
So there's a research that was done on coffee, where the beans of the coffee, they attract roaches. And FDA has approved that the beans can be 10% contaminated by roaches because it's a very tedious process to separate the beans from the cockroaches. So they ground the coffee with roaches. So is it permissible for us to drink that coffee?
Yeah, Jazakallah khair. So there's something that we will come to it. It's called istihala. And istihala is a process of cleaning food that almost changes the state of, like that is contaminated with the najasa, but it almost changes the najasa into like different form.
Okay.
It's no more in its original form. It's called istihala. And by the way, in the past, just for your information, they used to have like a small lake of very, very, very salty water. And they would throw the najasat in it, like the dead animals. And dead animals, najasa, of course, so they would throw them there. But because this salt water, like very, very thick salt water, it actually changes the form into something different. It becomes totally different. And the ulama have said that this purifies the najasa that was there, right? And it's a big topic that we'll talk about it when we talk about gelatin, inshallah. So those, wallahu alam, to the best of my understanding of your question, those beans have gone through a process of cleaning, and then perhaps there might be some remaining residual of things that come from cockroach. But then they go through cleaning process that you almost no more can identify them, right? They change the form. Then that's fine, inshallah. Okay. So I'm done with this, alhamdulillah, and now I would like to start with talking about najasa. What are the things that are najas? Any other question? Any question from the sister? Any card? Any paper? Inshallah, you can pass it. Barakallah fikum. Yes, Akhi.
I have a question. Like, how about like the qiyas? Like nowadays we have like soap, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you can, if you are coming to the masjid, let's say a dog touch you or lick you, you're not gonna change the clothes, or you're gonna go and dip it in dirt and come. So what are you gonna do? Like, could you wash it, for example? Just to, you said you can't wash the, and it تغسل الملابس اللي touch. Be soap instead of dirt and so.
Okay, so the I want to talk about najasa now, and actually I would answer this question, but najasa is like can be of different shape and forms, and I will talk about them. But the ruling about najasa is that you must remove it entirely, right? So that in order to purify the thing that it has touched. Now, you could, theoretically speaking, you could, or even practically speaking, you could remove najasa with chemicals. You could, entirely, right? But that, and if the najasa is removed, then khalas, you're fine. But that is not the tahara that we usually talk about, that you do yourself. So in other words, if for example, in your house, like a cat urinated, for example, or like you got some najasa on it, and there was a cleaning, I guess this is a very common example. You rent a house or you buy a house, and the previous owner had a dog in it, right? It always happens. What should you do? Are you going to wash the house 7 times? No.
With dirt.
No. What you need is to get professional cleaning that makes sure that every najasa is removed, and that's all. If you see it by your own eyes, if you see a dog coming, then that's when you need to do the 7 times. But if it is something that, the dog was here, I don't know where the dog has touched, then at that point in time you just make sure that there is nothing really wet on the ground or any traces of their dirt.
So if you touch your clothes, you have to do 7 times laundry?
No. By the way, washing is hand wash. Like you just wash it with the water 7 times. That's it. It's easy. No, not the laundry. No. By the way, does the laundry clean remove najasa or not? Like the washer. Does the washer? remove najasa or it doesn't?
I think it does.
So, by the way, if you use your washer, most likely you will be using those cleaning chemicals, right? So, if water is mixed with cleaning chemicals, it's no more the water that will can purify things from a Sharia perspective, right? However, your washer, after it applies those chemicals, it will go into multiple cycles with water only. Do you know that?
Rinse,
Rinse, exactly. So if it goes into that cycle, then yes, it does remove the najasa. But if you are only using water and soap, then no, it doesn't. Okay, so what are the types of najasas that we have? So najasa, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said, وَثِيَابَكَ فَطَهِّرْ, that you have to purify your clothes, right? And the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said, الطهور شطر الإيمان, that purity is half of your iman. There are multiple types of najasat. The first najasa that we are all aware of is the dead body. And when we talk about dead body here, we're talking about the animals, right? Not the human being, the animals. If an animal is dead, then it becomes najis. The only two that do not become najis if they die, as the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said, are fish, exactly, and locust. أحل لكم ميتتان ودمان. أحل لكم ميتتان ودمان. فأما الميتتان فالحوت والجراد. الحوت means fish, right? Hut in today's terminology means whale, but in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, fish was called hut. So al-hutu wal-jarad. Jarad is locust. You know locust? Yeah. Locust, okay. And then وَأَمَّا الدَّمَانِ فَالْكَبِدُ وَالطُّحَالِ. What is it? The spleen. You know spleen?
Liver and spleen.
Liver and spleen. Yeah, liver and spleen. But so those are even though they may have a lot of blood in them, it is permissible to eat them. Okay, so when we talk about mayita, a dead animal, if it is not the one that we consume their meat, of course, we're talking about an animal that we don't consume their meat, then it is what? It is najis, right? So, for example, if the cat dies, it's najis. If you see, for example, a tiger dying, it's najis. A dog, of course, is najis, and so on. But if it is an animal that we can consume its meat, then it all depends. Was there the cat? Was it mudakka or not? Meaning, was it slaughtered in an Islamic way or it wasn't? If it was, then it is no najis. That's why we eat, the beef and all those goat and others. But if it was not, if it didn't have the cat, like for example, you find a dead deer, right? Like it was hit by a car. That deer is now najis because it was not slaughtered Islamically, right? Or it was not hunted with Allahu Akbar or Bismillah Allahu Akbar. Okay, now those are the ones that we mayyita in general. If it is not what we consume its meat and has the cat, then it is najis. Fish and locust are exception, and also anything that does not have blood, like what? Like ant, like bees, for example. Things that do not have blood in them, those are still tahir. And actually, some of the ulama have talked about animals that may temporarily have blood, like what? Mosquitoes. By the way, mosquitoes, if they are hungry and you kill it, it doesn't have blood in it, right? But it only has blood after it bites. Okay, so they said that if those bugs temporarily have blood in them, those bugs temporarily have blood in them, then they are still tahir even after you kill them.
I have a question.
I'm coming. One second. I will come to your question right after this. And then the other thing that is not that even though if after death it may become permissible to use is the skin. And what I mean by skin, like for example, let's say you found a cow dying, like it died, and it was not slaughtered. Can you still use its skin? Well, Rasul ﷺ has said, أَيُّمَا إِهَابٍ دُبِغَ فَذَلِكَ طَهُورُهُ. That, skin tanning, not human tanning in salon. I'm talking about tanning as the process of converting animal skin into leather. It is a chemical process, right? It goes into some acids and I don't know all the details, but that process is called dibagha in Arabic. That dibagha, if it is applied to a skin of a dead animal, it makes it tahir, right? And that's why, for example, if you see for the fur of a bear, we don't eat bear, do we? We don't. So that if it goes through the tanning process, then it becomes tahir. Yes, Kyle.
It's not a question, but it's just like when you were talking about the man, you said liver and spleen. I know we have a lot of young people, so you have to elaborate more which liver and which spleen. It's just for the permissible.
Okay, it is tuhal, habibi.
No. I know that, but for them, they have to know that it's the spleen and the liver of edible animals by Muslims.
Yes.
Because they might convert it, and some young people would go, "Oh wow, any liver, any spleen." So
Yeah. It is a liver and spleen of an eatable, of a halal meat. Is that what you wanted to say? Okay, so yeah, Jazakallah khair for that. Yes, Akhi.
So fish, does it include all the seafood or just only the fish part? Because now the fish section.
Okay. Inshallah, we'll talk more about that, what is permissible to consume and what not. But let me answer your question. Rasul ﷺ has said that anything dead from the sea, from the ocean, is permissible, right? Which means that when you take it alive, like if you do fishing and you take anything, it is halal. So all the ulama have said any food, any living thing in the sea, in the ocean is permissible to eat, except the Hanafi madhab has its ruling about shrimp.
Oh, really?
Okay, now who's Hanafi here? Okay, if you love shrimp, you cannot be Hanafi. Why do they say shrimp is not permissible to eat? And by the way, they have a very valid point, because the shrimp eats dirt. It's actually, shrimp cleans the ground of the ocean. You know that, right? The same thing applies to the lobsters and all those things that are like very ugly shape. They clean crab, yeah.
What about fish?
Huh?
What about fish?
There are some fishes that do this. So there is a ruling about some animals or type of animals that are called in Sharia al-jallala. Have you heard this term? Al-jallala means the animal that consumes dirt, that only consumes dirt. Rasul ﷺ naha anil jallala. He ﷺ has forbade us from eating any animal that lives on dirt. So in other words, even if you have cow that eats from dirt, it's not permissible to eat it. Did you know that? Do you know about mad cow disease? Why do we have mad cow? Because they eat dirt. Because they eat, they take some animal shortenings and they mix them with dirt and they make the cow, they feed the cow with them. So they don't feed them grass. And that's why now it is very important to watch what you're eating. Because, it's like Islamically speaking, not only from a health perspective, Because if the cow is not eating grass, it's eating, for example, animal shortening, it becomes jalala and you cannot eat it. Its food becomes impermissible. It's meat. So the Hanafi school of thought were very, very deep in this. They said the shrimp in the ocean water is jalala because it lives on dirt. It just cleans. So they say it takes the same ruling like any jalala, like a cow or a sheep or a goat that actually just eats dirt, which Rasul ﷺ has forbade us from eating.
Don't most fish anyway eat like corpses? If you throw a dead fish in the water, you'll find like dozens of fish coming to eat it. That's just how most are, right? Fish in general.
I'm sorry, I'm not getting this.
يعني السمك إذا لقى شيء ميت بالمي, like a dead corpse or anything like dead, it'll go for it. It'll nibble at it. It'll eat it. Most fish. Like even sharks and stuff. When a whale sinks to the bottom of the ocean after it dies, they'll clean it up. Most fish.
Yeah, but if all the food that they eat is dirt, that makes it jalala. But if they take some dirt and some not dirt, then that's fine.
Yeah, the main purpose just to contrast what he's saying. Where I grew up in Lagos, the food that most of the fish eat is the excreta of human beings. Because that's where it's oil and that's where the most of the fish go to get the food.
Why do you want to make it difficult on yourself?
So I'm going to now and tell them not to eat fish.
But please don't tell them that I told you this. They will go after me. Yeah. So that's a ruling of al-jalala. Al-jalala, by the way, its meat is najis. So any animal that just grows out of or consumes dirt, and that's all what they do to grow up, even if they were halal, like the camel, like the sheep or goats, they are not permissible to eat, and until they spend a long time eating good food. So the only way that we purify jalala is by letting that animal live a long enough time with good food that purifies its body inside, and then we can eat it. By the way, just to make you aware, I talked about jalala in one session I was giving, fiqh session, and there was a doctor there. Wallahi, he teared. Wallahi, I saw him crying. And then he came to me and he was like, Sheikh, this is how noble this Sharia is. Like, I have never seen a religion or any direction that came in the past that talks about this. Like, those details, those type of details are so enlightening, or they are so insightful for us, because yes, any animal that lives out of dirt, it actually creates a lot of diseases. And that's why the Hanafi madhab says that shrimp is not allowed. And I hope, inshallah, I'm not making you upset. By the way, just to let you know, in Christianity, they do the same. They say that. I heard it from Joel Osteen, if you heard about him. Joel Osteen is a big name in Texas. And he once was talking to his church. Over 10,000 people were hearing him, and he said shrimp is not permissible in Christianity. It's because of the same thing, because it lives on dirt. So in that point, by the way, I do not eat shrimp for two reasons. One, because I respect this opinion of Imam Abu Hanifa, and because I'm allergic to it. I know it's tasty. They told me it's tasty. But anyway, so I think we have to stop here because we already passed the time. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. Inshallah, after Salah, if you have more questions, I can answer. Inshallah.